My sister stood on the porch with her arms crossed, watching my clothes and everything I owned get scattered across the front lawn while the neighbors stared. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "This is my house now. You never belonged here anyway." My voice went quiet, controlled. She was so sure of herself. And I almost let her enjoy it. Almost. What she didn't know was that I had already signed the papers. All of them. My name is Carmela. I'm 36 years old, and I've spent most of my adult life working as a licensed home health aide. Double shifts, back-to-back weekends, holidays away from home. Not because I loved exhaustion, but because the bills didn't pay themselves and somebody had to show up. I grew up in a mid-sized southern town. My mother came over from Sicily with almost nothing and built a modest life around the home that would later become the center of everything you're about to hear. I was never the prized child. My younger sister Vanessa was the one who got the praise, the soft eyes, the extra slice of attention. She was louder, more demanding, and somehow always rewarded for it. I was the one quietly handling the bills, making the repair calls, sitting bedside during the hard nights. Nobody threw me a party for any of it. I didn't expect one. I wasn't glamorous. I didn't have a fancy car or an impressive title, but I was patient and I paid attention to things other people ignored. That turned out to matter more than anyone expected. If you've ever been the one who did all the work while someone else took all the credit, this story is for you. Have you ever been overlooked in your own family? Subscribe if you haven't already, and click like because you're going to want to stick around for what happens next. 3 months after our mother passed, Vanessa called a family meeting. Just her, me, and her Aunt Phyllis, sitting around the kitchen table in the house where we grew up. Vanessa didn't ease into it. She announced, plainly and without apology, that she was taking over the family home because she was, in her own words, always the one Mama loved most. Then she slid a folded piece of paper across the table like it was a royal decree. A handwritten note, she said, from our mother, naming her sole heir to the property. No lawyer. No notary. No official stamp of any kind. Just her own mother's name at the bottom in shaky cursive. Aunt Phyllis nodded along the whole time, murmuring that it was what your mother always wanted, while barely lifting her eyes to meet mine. I sat there and I felt the blood drain out of my face. Not from shock, from recognition. I had seen this coming and I still wasn't fully prepared for the coldness of it. Then Vanessa looked at me and said, "You were the helper, Carmela. Helpers don't get the house, they get a thank you card." I kept my jaw tight. I said nothing. 2 days later, I found out she had already told the entire extended family through a group chat, before she'd even spoken to me face to face, that the home was hers and that Carmela had agreed. Relatives started texting me to congratulate her. I was still sitting in the driveway when the messages started coming in. I read every single one. Then I opened the group chat, read her message word for word, and took a screenshot. What I didn't say out loud, what I didn't share with a single person that day, was that 6 weeks earlier, while our mother was still lucid and still herself, a family attorney had already drawn up and filed the official updated property documents. My name was on them. I said nothing. Not yet. The first betrayal came fast. I came home from a night shift, bone-tired, smelling like antiseptic and bad cafeteria coffee, to find my bedroom door locked. There was a sticky note on the handle that read, "I'm using this as a guest room. You can have the couch." I stood in the hallway for a long moment. The house smelled different already. She had removed our mother's photos from the living room wall and replaced them with her own family portraits. I stared at the blank spaces on the wallpaper where the frames used to hang, and I felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. I didn't argue. I didn't knock on the door. I quietly moved my essentials to my car and drove to a coworker's place and slept on her spare cot that night. The second betrayal came at our mother's memorial gathering, held at the house, surrounded by family. Vanessa made a toast. She stood in the center of the room, wineglass raised, and said she had been there for Mama every single day. That she had made sure Mama was comfortable. That she had given up so much. People clapped. My uncle pulled her into a hug and told her Mama would be so proud. I was standing 6 feet away, holding a casserole dish I had cooked myself for the event. Nobody looked at me. I walked to the bathroom, set the dish on the counter, gripped both sides of the sink, and stared at my own reflection. I said it quietly, just to myself. Not yet. Not here. The third betrayal was the most calculated. Vanessa showed up at my coworker's apartment with a typed document, a so-called family agreement. She wanted me to sign over any future claims to the property in exchange for a one-time payment of $1,500 and a used sofa. Her tone was almost gentle when she said it. "This is the cleanest way to do this, Carmela. Don't make it ugly." I read it slowly. Every line. Then I folded it, handed it back, and said, "I'll think about it." I wasn't crumbling. I was calculating. There's a difference. What they didn't know was that I had the original property deed, the updated filing, and 3 months of text messages from Vanessa trying to get me to sign things without reading them. 6 weeks before our mother passed, she'd had a clear-headed afternoon, one of those rare windows where she was fully herself, eyes sharp, voice steady. She had called the family attorney herself that same afternoon and updated the property transfer documents. She listed me as the primary owner, with one condition. Vanessa could stay in the home for up to 90 days during a transition period. Nothing more. I had honored my mother's wish for quiet. I hadn't told Vanessa. I hadn't wanted to turn those final weeks into a legal argument. I had sat with my mother, held her hand, and let her believe she had handled things the right way. Because she had, I kept thinking Vanessa would stop. That somewhere inside her she'd remember who actually stayed, who actually showed up through all the hard nights and the quiet mornings and the impossible in-between moments. She didn't stop, so neither did I. The clothes on the lawn, that was the last mistake she ever made in that house. I reached out to our mother's attorney, a man named Mr. Tatum, who had handled the family's paperwork for over 20 years. He was not a flashy person. He didn't speak in dramatic declarations or big gestures. He was steady and precise, and when I sat across from him, he confirmed everything. Properly filed, legally airtight. Vanessa had no claim. He offered to be present if things escalated, and then he said something I've carried with me ever since. "You don't have to be loud to win this. The paperwork is loud enough." Meanwhile, Vanessa was getting bolder. She started posting photos of her new home on social media. She tagged extended family. She was already calling contractors about renovations. A cousin named Dana quietly texted me one afternoon, "Something feels off about all this. Are you okay?" I told her I was managing. She didn't push, but she was paying attention, and that mattered. Then Vanessa gave me a formal deadline. Be out completely by the end of the month, or she would donate the rest of my belongings. The morning after that warning, I arrived at the house to find every piece of my remaining clothing dumped on the front lawn in garbage bags. The neighbors were watching. A teenager across the street was recording on his phone. Vanessa appeared in the doorway and said, "I gave you time, don't make a scene." I looked at the bags. I looked at the neighbors. I looked back at her and I almost smiled. I said, "I won't." 2 days later, Mr. Tatum's office sent Vanessa a formal notice of property ownership. Carmela's name. Legal owner of record. Documentation attached. 30-day vacate notice included. Vanessa came to my coworker's door that same evening. She was furious. "You did this to me? Your own sister. Mama would be sick." I opened the door fully and looked at her calmly. "Mama did this," I said. "I just let her." She escalated immediately. "That lawyer is lying. That document is fake. I'll contest it." I didn't raise my voice. "You can try, but you'll want to talk to Mr. Tatum first. He has the original signed and notarized transfer, the filing date, and every text message where you asked me to sign something without an attorney present." Vanessa went silent for the first time since any of this had started. That silence had weight. Meanwhile, Cousin Dana had been quietly doing her own digging. Her instincts had been right from the beginning, and she had already spoken to 2 other relatives about the so-called handwritten note Vanessa had produced at that family meeting. A family elder, our late mother's closest friend, confirmed that she had been present the afternoon the official documents were signed. She said our mother had been clear, intentional, and at peace with her decision. Then the family group chat ignited. The same one Vanessa had used to announce her ownership and tell everyone that Carmela had agreed. Relatives started asking questions. Vanessa's story began to collapse publicly, in the exact space where she had tried to humiliate me. I looked at Vanessa on that doorstep one last time, and I kept my voice low and even. "You put my clothes on the lawn in front of the whole neighborhood. I want you to remember that feeling. Because in 30 days I'll need my key back." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just told the truth and let the paperwork finish the conversation. Vanessa vacated within the 30-day window. Quietly, without confrontation, without a single apology. Aunt Phyllis stopped calling. The relatives who had sent congratulations to Vanessa went silent. A few of them reached out to me privately to apologize, and I received those messages with grace and not much else. Then I moved back in. My house. I repacked my mother's photos onto the walls exactly where they had always been, in the same order, at the same heights. Dana came over and helped me hang them. We shared a quiet meal in the kitchen that evening and barely needed to say anything at all. That first night, I walked through the house alone after she left. It smelled like her, like the good years, like Sunday mornings and the particular warmth of a home that had been genuinely lived in. I stood in the hallway and I let myself cry. Not from sadness, from relief. Vanessa's renovation plans were gone. Her contractor quotes, her social media posts, her declarations of ownership, all of it dissolved into nothing. What remained was the house, the deed, and the silence of someone who had overplayed every card she held. My mother didn't leave me the house because I was the favorite. She left it to me because she knew I would take care of it, just like I always did. If you've ever been the one who stayed, who sacrificed, who showed up quietly while someone else took the applause, I hope this story felt like a breath of fresh air. Have you ever been pushed out of something that was rightfully yours? Share your story in the comments. You are not alone. And click like to help this story reach others who need it. If this story hit home, there are more just like it on this channel. Real stories about people who were underestimated, overlooked, and written off until they weren't. Subscribe so you never miss one. And if you know someone who has been carrying their family quietly, without recognition, share this with them. Sometimes the right story finds us exactly when we need it.